used to think a haircut couldn't undo 10 years of damage. And then I sat in a stylist's chair last spring and watched it happen. Every week I dig through what actually works for women over 50. Not trends, not guesswork. Real fixes that change how you're seen the second you walk into a room. Today it's 5 haircuts that genuinely take years off, the specific cuts, the specific reasons they work, and exactly what to say when you sit down in that chair. I researched the worst style and beauty mistakes and the best fixes for women over 50, so you get real results, fast. If you haven't already, hit subscribe. I cover this every week. Part 1. The layered bob that lifts your whole face. Here's something most women never hear from their stylist. Hair that hangs flat past the jaw doesn't just look tired. It actually pulls the eye downward and drags every feature with it. Gravity becomes the enemy the moment length passes a certain point. And almost nobody warns you about this before the damage is done. You've felt it, haven't you? That moment in the mirror where your reflection looks heavier around the jaw than you remember feeling that morning. It's not your imagination, and it's not your face changing overnight. It's the weight of unlayered hair sitting exactly where you don't want extra visual weight added. The fix is a layered bob, cut to graze just at or slightly above the jawline, with the heaviest layering concentrated around the cheekbones rather than the ends. This isn't a generic get a bob instruction. The layering placement is the whole trick. When the shortest layers sit at cheekbone height and blend downward, they create lift exactly where your face naturally wants attention drawn upward, toward your eyes, instead of downward toward the jaw and neck. Here's the phrase to use in the chair, word for word. I want the interior layers concentrated at cheekbone height, with the perimeter left slightly heavier for movement. Say that exact sentence and watch a good stylist's face change, because you've just told them you know what you're asking for. Most clients walk in and say something shorter, more layers, which gives the stylist nothing to work with and often results in layers scattered evenly throughout, which flattens volume instead of building it where you need it. Why does cheekbone height layering work specifically for women over 50? As we age, soft tissue naturally shifts downward along the jaw and lower cheek. This isn't a flaw, it's just what happens. A layered bob with weight concentrated higher up counters that shift visually. It's the same principle a makeup artist uses when they contour upward instead of down. The hair does the same job the highlighter does on your cheekbone, except it works all day, in every lighting, without a single product. Watch what happens the moment those layers hit. The sides of your face catch light differently, movement appears where there was only static weight before, and the jawline that felt heavy suddenly reads as defined instead of tired. Women tell me this is the fix where someone at work or a family gathering says, "Did you do something different?" without being able to name exactly what changed. That's the layered bob doing its job quietly. I had a client, Rosalind, 68, come in wearing hair she'd kept the same length since her 40s because it felt safe. 10 minutes into the cut, watching those cheekbone layers fall into place, she actually laughed out loud and said she hadn't seen her own jawline this clearly in a decade. That's not an exaggeration for effect. That's what correctly placed layering does. There's a second layer to this fix that almost nobody mentions. The length at the very front, the pieces that fall near your chin, should be cut about 1/4 inch shorter than the back perimeter. This tiny difference creates a subtle forward taper that frames the lower face instead of boxing it in. Ask for it specifically, because most stylists cut the perimeter perfectly level, unless you request otherwise, and level cut ends read as heavier and more dated than a soft forward taper. The before and after here is stark once you see it side by side. Before, hair hanging flat past the shoulders, weight pooling at jaw level, no movement, no lift, the whole face reading heavier than it is. After, a jaw-grazing layered bob with cheekbone concentrated layers, and a soft 1/4 inch forward taper at the front, catching light, creating movement, lifting the eye up toward the cheekbones and eyes instead of down toward the jaw. That's cut 1. But there's a second haircut that works almost the opposite way, not through length at all, and it fixes something that layering alone can't touch. Part 2. The fringe that softens a decade. Nobody warns you about this one. And it's the reason so many women avoid fringe entirely after 50. A fringe cut wrong ages a face faster than almost any other single choice. Blunt across the brow, too heavy, too short. But a fringe cut correctly does the opposite so completely that it's become the most requested change among women who've seen it done right on a friend first. The forehead is where those horizontal lines tend to show up most honestly, and there's no shame in that. It's simply where decades of expression live. But a straight-across, brow-skimming fringe puts a hard frame directly around that exact area, drawing every eye straight to it. That's the mistake. Not the forehead itself, the framing choice around it. The fix is a soft, side-swept curtain fringe, longer at the outer edges and shortest through the very center, blended so there's no hard line anywhere across it. This is a completely different shape from the blunt fringe, and the difference in effect is enormous. Instead of framing the forehead with a straight edge, a curtain fringe drapes diagonally across it, breaking up horizontal lines with soft diagonal movement instead of highlighting them with a flat edge. Here's the exact phrase for the chair. I want a curtain fringe, longest at the outer corners, shortest at the center part, fully blended with no blunt line anywhere. That specificity matters enormously because fringe alone can mean 6 different things to 6 different stylists, and a badly communicated fringe request is the single most common regret women report after a haircut over 50. The mechanism here is about diagonal lines versus horizontal ones. Horizontal lines, like the straight edge of a blunt fringe or the horizontal lines etched into a forehead over time, read as static and add visual age. Diagonal lines, the kind a side-swept curtain fringe creates, read as movement, softness, and youth. It's the same principle used in flattering necklines and hemlines, diagonal beat straight, every time for softening. Applied to fringe, it means the pieces sweeping across at an angle actually camouflage those forehead lines rather than spotlighting them. The snapback moment happens almost instantly once the fringe is styled and dried. Watch how the eyes suddenly become the focal point of the whole face, because the diagonal sweep of hair naturally leads the eye toward them instead of stalling at a flat horizontal line across the brow. Women who've avoided fringe for years because it ages me are usually remembering a blunt fringe from decades ago. A properly blended curtain fringe does the opposite of what they're braced for. I think about Colette, 71, who told me flatly she'd sworn off fringe since 1994. She sat through the whole cut skeptical, arms crossed, convinced she'd hate it. When the stylist finished the diagonal blend and swept it to the side, Colette went quiet for a second, then asked to see the back too, which is usually the tell that someone's actually pleased, not just being polite. One more detail that separates a great curtain fringe from an average one. The part it grows from should sit slightly off-center, not dead center. A dead center part pulls the fringe into 2 equal, more rigid halves. An off-center part lets one side fall longer and looser than the other, which reads as far more natural and far less styled at the hairdresser this morning. The before and after tells the whole story without a single word needed. Before, a blunt, brow-skimming fringe sitting flat and heavy, drawing every eye straight to the horizontal lines of the forehead. After, a soft, diagonally swept curtain fringe growing from an off-center part, breaking up those same lines with movement instead of exposing them. That fringe fix handles the forehead. But there's a mistake sitting at the crown of the head that quietly undoes everything else on this list if it's left uncorrected. And it's next. Part 3. The crown volume cut that changes everything. I need to tell you something a lot of stylists won't say directly. Thinning at the crown isn't the real problem for most women over 50. The real problem is a haircut that's still cut for the hair density you had 20 years ago, which makes any natural thinning look far more dramatic than it actually is. You know the moment. Overhead lighting, a bathroom mirror, a photo someone took from slightly above, and suddenly the crown looks sparse in a way it doesn't feel when you're just living your life. That gap between how your hair feels and how it photographs from above is almost always a cutting problem, not a hair loss problem. The fix is a disconnected crown cut, where the top layers are cut noticeably shorter than the layers surrounding them, creating a built-in separation that forces volume upward rather than letting it lie flat against the scalp. This is a very specific technical request, and it's the one most stylists reach for automatically when a client asks for more volume on top, but doesn't know how to describe the mechanism. Say this in the chair. I want the crown layers cut 2 to 3 inches shorter than the surrounding hair, fully disconnected, so the shorter pieces stand up and create lift instead of blending flat into the rest. That disconnection is the entire mechanism. Without it, even short layers on top will simply fall and blend with the length around them, and you're back to flat. Here's why this matters so specifically for women over 50. Hair strands naturally lose some diameter and density with age, which means each individual strand has less structural strength to hold itself upright. A cut that relies on the hair's own weight to create shape, the kind you might have worn in your 30s, simply won't perform the same way now. A disconnected crown cut solves this mechanically rather than relying on the hair to do work it can no longer do on its own. The shorter length itself creates the lift, not the hair's natural body. The result the moment it's dry and styled is dramatic in the best way. That gap between feels fine and photograph sparse closes almost entirely, because the crown now has actual dimensional height instead of relying on faith that thin strands will somehow stand up on their own. Overhead lighting stops being the enemy. Photos from above stop being the thing you avoid at family gatherings. Diane, 64, told me she'd started parting her hair differently every few months, convinced that rotating the part would somehow disguise thinning at the crown. It never worked, because the problem was never the part, it was the flat cut underneath. Once the disconnected crown layers were in, she told me she finally stopped thinking about the top of her head every time she walked past a mirror, which is exactly the quiet relief this fix is built to deliver. One more piece worth asking for. Request that the disconnection point sits slightly behind the crown's highest point, not directly on it. Cutting the shortest layers a touch further back creates a more natural-looking lift, like your hair is rising from just behind the crown rather than looking artificially puffed at a single spot. Directly on crown disconnection can look a little too engineered. Slightly behind reads effortless. Side by side, the difference is unmistakable. Before, crown hair cut with old density in mind, lying flat, relying on strands that no longer have the strength to hold shape alone. After, a disconnected crown cut with shorter layers positioned just behind the highest point, standing with real dimensional lift that reads full from every angle, including directly overhead. Crown volume solves what happens from above. But there's a cut built entirely around what happens from the side, the profile view most of us forget to check, and it might be the most overlooked fix on this whole list. Part 4. The long pixie angle nobody explains properly. Here's a confession from more stylists than you'd expect. The pixie cut gets blamed for aging women when it's almost never the pixie itself doing the damage. It's one specific angle, cut wrong at the nape, that turns a genuinely youthful cut into something that reads severe instead of soft. If you've ever tried a short pixie and felt like it made you look harder rather than lighter, I'd bet real money the issue wasn't the length. It was the angle at the back of the neck, cut too abruptly, too squared off, with no graduated softness leading into it. The fix is a graduated nape, where the hairline at the back of the neck tapers gradually from longer to shorter over roughly 1.5 inches, rather than stopping abruptly at one hard line. This single change is the difference between a pixie that reads soft and current, and one that reads clipped and severe. And almost nobody asks for it by name because almost nobody knows it has a name. Here's the exact request. I want the nape graduated, tapering gradually over about 1.5 inches, no hard line at the bottom of the cut. A stylist who hears that knows immediately you're asking for the soft, blended finish rather than the sharp, barbershop-style edge that so many pixies default to unless specifically directed otherwise. The reason this matters so much from the side profile specifically, a hard squared-off nape creates a visible corner where the head meets the neck, and corners read as harsh in any context, hair included. A graduated taper removes that corner entirely, replacing it with a soft diagonal line that follows the natural curve of the head instead of fighting against it. It's a small technical detail with an outsized visual effect, because the profile view is one of the only angles where people actually see you without you watching yourself see it. In photos, across a table, walking past a mirror at an angle. The moment this graduation is finished and the client turns to see the profile in a hand mirror, the reaction is almost always the same. A genuine surprise that something this small changed something this significant. The pixie stops reading as a cut that erases softness, and starts reading as a cut that simply removes what wasn't serving you anymore, length with nothing structural holding it up. Marguerite, 69, had worn a hard-edged pixie for 3 years and told me she'd started avoiding photos taken from the side, because she felt the back of her neck looked unfinished, in a way she couldn't quite name. The graduated taper was the answer she didn't know to ask for. She saw the profile view after and actually reached back to touch it again, checking that the soft line was real. There's a companion detail worth requesting alongside the graduated nape. Ask for slightly longer pieces left at the crown, just enough that they can be lightly tousled forward or to the side. A pixie with zero length variation anywhere can look uniform in a way that skews severe. A touch of extra length at the crown, paired with the soft graduated nape, gives you somewhere to add texture and personality day to day, rather than one fixed shape with no room to style differently. The before and after here lives almost entirely in profile, which is exactly why it's so often missed. Before, a short pixie with a hard, squared-off nape creating a visible harsh corner at the back of the neck. After, the same short length, but with a gradually graduated nape tapering softly over 1.5 inches, removing the corner entirely and replacing severity with softness. 4 cuts down, and each one has solved a different angle of the same problem. The fifth is the one I'd argue matters most, because it's not about a shape at all, it's about a single cutting technique that makes every haircut on this list actually last. Part 5. The texturizing cut that makes everything else work. I'll say the quiet part out loud. You can get every single haircut on this list done perfectly, and still walk out feeling like something's off, if the stylist skips the one finishing technique that ties it all together. It's rarely mentioned by name, and it's the difference between a cut that looks styled and a cut that looks alive. Have you ever had a fresh haircut that looked genuinely good the moment you left the salon, only to feel strangely stiff and helmet-like by the second day? That's not your hair failing you. That's a cut finished with blunt, uniform ends and no texturizing passed through it, which can look polished for exactly one blowout and nothing beyond that. The fix is point cutting, sometimes called texturizing shears work, applied through the mid-lengths and ends of any cut, where the stylist cuts into the hair at a vertical angle rather than straight across, removing bulk without removing length. This technique is what separates a cut that photographs beautifully on day 1 from a cut that still looks intentional on day 5, styled or not. The phrase to use: please point cut through the mid-lengths and ends. I want texture and movement built in, not a blunt finish. This request applies on top of whichever shape you've chosen from the first 4 parts of this list: the layered bob, the curtain fringe, the crown volume cut, or the graduated pixie. Point cutting isn't a separate haircut. It's the finishing pass that makes any of those 4 actually behave the way you want them to, day after day. Here's the mechanism, and it's worth understanding because it explains why this one detail has such an outsized effect. Hair cut in a straight, blunt line across the ends has every strand ending at the exact same length, which creates a heavy, uniform edge that can only really move in one way, as a single block. Point cutting breaks that uniform edge into thousands of tiny, irregular lengths, so individual pieces of hair can move independently instead of as one solid mass. That independent movement is what reads as texture, as lived in, as effortless, rather than as freshly set and untouchable. The snapback moment shows up days after the appointment, not in the mirror that same afternoon. Watch what happens by day 3 or 4. Hair that would normally look flat or overgrown at the roots by then still holds shape, because the texture built into the ends is doing structural work the blunt cut never could. Women consistently tell me this is the fix that finally stopped them dreading the in-between days before their next appointment. Marguerite, the same woman from the Pixie Fix, actually came back for a follow-up appointment specifically to add point cutting after her graduated nape had already grown out slightly. She said the shape itself was holding, but the ends had started to feel stiff again, and one texturizing pass brought the whole cut back to life without cutting a single inch of length. One last request worth making. Ask your stylist to concentrate the heaviest point cutting through the bottom third of the length, rather than evenly throughout. Too much texturizing near the roots can thin hair out in a way that looks sparse rather than soft, especially for finer hair types. Concentrated at the bottom third. It lightens exactly where blunt weight tends to build up, without ever touching the density you need higher up. The before and after closes out this entire list the way it should, showing the transformation from stiff to alive. Before, blunt, uniformly heavy ends with no independent movement, looking polished for one day and flat after that. After, point cut ends with texture concentrated through the bottom third, moving independently, holding shape and softness well past the salon appointment itself. 5 cuts, 5 specific requests, and 1 thread running through every single one. The right technical detail, asked for by name, changes everything a generic request never could. You now know 5 specific cuts, and more importantly, you know the exact words to say in the chair for each one: cheekbone concentrated layers, a diagonally swept curtain fringe, a disconnected crown, a graduated nape, and point cut ends. That's not luck and it's not genetics, that's precision. And precision is something you can walk in and ask for by name starting with your very next appointment. Tell me in the comments, which of these 5 surprised you the most, the crown volume trick, or the pixie nape fix nobody talks about? Next time, I'm breaking down the exact color placements that pair with every cut on this list, so the color works with the shape instead of fighting it. Like this video, subscribe to Timeless Wisdom Path, and I'll see you in the next one.